Her! Get to her first, please. You have to help her now. His desperate command wasn't for his wife Amara, who lay trapped and bleeding inside the wreckage. It was for the other woman. Through a spiderweb of fractured glass, her own leg pinned and screaming in agony, Amara watched the man who vowed to protect her direct the first horrified onlookers toward someone else. In that single, heart-stopping moment, he made a choice. But what he didn't know was that this choice would cost him everything, igniting a quiet revenge that would systematically dismantle his entire world. If you believe karma always finds its way, make sure you subscribe and share this story. We love seeing our global community, so let us know in the comments where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. So how does a woman left with nothing bring down the man who took it all? You'll have to listen to find out. The sun hung low over the suburban driveway, casting long shadows that stretched like accusing fingers across the pavement. Amara adjusted the strap of her weekend bag, her fingers lingering on the familiar leather as if it could anchor her to something solid. Michael stood by the car, keys jingling in his hand, his smile a little too bright, a little too forced. Jessica hovered nearby, her laughter tinkling like wind chimes, light but somehow grating against Amara's nerves. It had been Michael's idea, this spontaneous road trip to the lake house. "Just us and Jess," he'd said, his eyes avoiding hers as he packed the cooler. Amara had nodded, swallowing the unease that had been building for months. She remembered how it started, Michael coming home late from work, mentioning Jessica more often, the old colleague who'd become his best friend after her messy divorce. Amara had met her a few times, noted the way Jessica leaned in too close, her touches lingering on Michael's arm. But Amara had pushed it down, telling herself it was nothing. Michael had loved her once, fiercely, from their college days when he'd surprised her with picnics under the stars, whispering promises of forever. Lately, though, those memories felt like relics from another life. Amara reached for the passenger door handle out of habit, the co-pilot seat, her seat, where she'd always navigated the maps and teased Michael about his terrible singing. But before her fingers could grasp the cool metal, Jessica's voice sliced through the air, sweet and whiny, like honey laced with vinegar. "Amara, sweetie, do you mind if I sit up front? I get so motion sick in the back, it's awful." Jessica batted her lashes, her hand already on the door, as if the request was a mere formality. Amara froze, her stomach twisting. Motion sick? Jessica had never mentioned that before, not during the group hikes or the long drives to dinners. It felt like a flimsy excuse, a ploy to claim what wasn't hers. Amara glanced at Michael, searching his face for support, for the man who'd once defended her against the world. But he just chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, hon, let Jess sit up front. It's only for a bit. Won't kill you to ride in the back." His words landed like a slap, casual but cutting. There was a flicker in his eyes. Regret? Hesitation? Or was Amara imagining it, desperate for signs that he still cared? She swallowed hard, her throat tight, and stepped back. "Sure," she murmured, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. As she slid into the back seat, the leather creaked under her weight, cool and impersonal. The car smelled of Michael's cologne mixed with Jessica's floral perfume, an invasive blend that made Amara's chest ache. She felt like an intruder in her own marriage, relegated to the shadows while Jessica claimed the spotlight, chattering animatedly about some office gossip as Michael started the engine. The drive began in stifling silence for Amara, the highway blurring past in streaks of green and gray. She stared out the window, her mind replaying the small betrayals she'd ignored, the late-night texts, the work trips that stretched too long. Why hadn't she said something? Self-doubt gnawed at her. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe this was just friendship. But deep down, a voice whispered that she was fooling herself. Then chaos erupted. A screech of tires ahead, a truck swerving wildly. Michael yelled, slamming the brakes. The world tilted in a cacophony of metal grinding against metal, glass shattering like brittle ice. Amara's body jerked forward, the seatbelt digging into her skin as the car spun. Pain exploded in her leg, sharp and blinding, as something heavy pinned her against the door. Smoke filled the air, acrid and choking, mingling with the coppery tang of blood. Screams echoed. Hers? Jessica's? The car came to a shuddering halt, tilted at an unnatural angle. Dazed, Amara blinked through the haze, her vision swimming. Her leg throbbed, twisted awkwardly beneath the crumpled dashboard. Michael, she gasped, her voice weak, barely cutting through the ringing in her ears. Outside movement, Michael groaning as he kicked open his door, crawling out onto the asphalt. Amara's heart surged with relief. He was alive. But then he turned, not toward her, but to the passenger side. His hands were frantic on Jessica's door, pulling her free, his voice murmuring assurances to her as she whimpered. Amara watched, a cold dread settling in her gut. He didn't even glance back. Voices from afar, a bystander on the phone shouting into it. Yeah, accident on Highway 12. Man's pulling his wife from the front seat. She looks hurt badly. Send help quickly. Amara's breath hitched. Wife? The word hung in the air, mocking her. Paramedics arrived in a blur of sirens and flashing lights, their boots crunching on debris. One knelt by Michael, who was cradling Jessica against him. Sir, is your wife okay? We need to check her vitals. Michael's face, pale and streaked with dirt, froze for a split second. Amara waited, her heart pounding, for him to correct them, to point to her, trapped and bleeding in the back. But in the panic, he just nodded, his voice hoarse. She's fine, just shaken. The lie pierced Amara deeper than the pain in her leg. As the rescuers turned their attention to Jessica first, Amara slumped against the seat, tears blurring her vision. In that moment, the truth crystallized. She wasn't just in the backseat of the car, she was in the backseat of her own life, and Michael had chosen to leave her there. The sterile beep of machines pierced the fog in Amara's mind, pulling her from a dreamless void. Her eyelids fluttered open to harsh fluorescent lights, the room a blur of white walls and metallic rails. Pain radiated from her leg, a dull, throbbing fire that made her gasp. She tried to shift, but the cast immobilizing her thigh held her fast, the weight of it pressing like an unyielding reminder of the crash. Where was she? The hospital smell, antiseptic laced with faint bleach, hit her next, grounding her in reality. Memories flooded back in fragments. The screech of tires, the jolt of impact, Michael's voice murmuring to Jessica. And that nod, that silent lie when the paramedic asked about his wife. Amara's chest tightened, a fresh ache blooming there, sharper than the physical one. She scanned the room. No flowers, no card, just an empty chair by the bed, and a half-drawn curtain filtering the afternoon light. A nurse bustled in, her scrub swishing softly, a clipboard in hand. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a practiced smile that didn't quite mask the exhaustion. Oh, good, you're awake. How's the pain, dear? On a scale of 1 to 10? 8, Amara whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. She swallowed, tasting the dryness in her throat. Water? The nurse poured from a pitcher, handing her a cup with a straw. As Amara sipped, the cool liquid soothed her, but it couldn't wash away the questions swirling in her head. How long? 2 days, the nurse replied, checking the IV drip. You were out cold from the surgery, compound fracture in your femur. Luckily, it wasn't worse. Your husband was here the whole time, pacing like a caged lion. Sweet man, that one. He took your friend home to rest first, then came right back. Stayed until the docs shooed him out this morning. Said he'd return soon. Amara's hand stilled on the cup, the water turning bitter on her tongue. Husband. Friend. The words echoed, twisting like a knife. Michael had taken Jessica home first, while she lay here, broken and alone. The nurse's casual recounting hit like a revelation, each syllable confirming what Amara had feared in the wreckage. He hadn't just chosen Jessica in the chaos. He'd prioritized her afterward, too. Left Amara sedated and vulnerable to ferry his mistress, because what else could Jessica be? To safety and comfort. Her mind reeled, piecing together the puzzle she'd ignored for too long. Those late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls he'd brush off as work stuff. And now this. But beneath the anger, a sliver of doubt crept in. Michael hadn't always been like this. She remembered their wedding vows, his eyes shining with genuine love as he promised to cherish her. Had it all been a facade, Or had something eroded him? Stress from his job in construction bidding? Perhaps. Or Jessica's calculated allure? Amara had met her after her divorce. Jessica had seemed vulnerable then, sharing stories of betrayal that mirrored Amara's growing suspicions now. Was it revenge for Jessica, or just opportunism? The nurse adjusted her pillow, oblivious to the storm raging inside Amara. You rest now. I'll get the doctor for rounds. As the door clicked shut, Amara stared at the ceiling, tears welling hot and unbidden. The pain in her leg paled against the betrayal gnawing at her heart. She wasn't just injured, she was shattered, pieces of trust scattering like the glass from the crash. How could he? In her mind's eye, she saw him helping Jessica into their home, their bed, while she fought for consciousness here. The image fueled a spark of resolve amid the despair. Her phone lay on the bedside table, screen cracked but functional. With trembling fingers, she reached for it, ignoring the missed calls from Michael. No more waiting for explanations or apologies. She scrolled through contacts, landing on the number she'd saved months ago after a friend's divorce story planted the seed. A lawyer specializing in marital dissolution, cold, professional, exactly what she needed. The line rang twice before a crisp voice answered. Law offices of Harper and Associates. How may I help? This is Amara Ellis, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I need to file for divorce. Immediately. As she recounted the accident, the seat switch, the rescue, the nurse's unwitting confirmation, a weight lifted, even as grief threatened to drown her. The lawyer promised to start paperwork, mentioning grounds for abandonment and emotional neglect. Amara hung up, exhaling shakily. But then, a nagging thought surfaced. An old bank statement she glimpsed last year. Unexplained transfers Michael had dismissed as business expenses. Had the deceit run deeper, financial as well as emotional? The question lingered, a loose thread she might pull later. For now, exhaustion pulled at her, but so did a budding determination. This wasn't the end, it was a severing. As sleep tugged her under, Amara clung to that spark. She would rebuild, even if it meant facing the ruins first. The weeks blurred into a haze of hospital routines and legal jargon, each day marked by the click of heels in the corridor or the rustle of papers on Amara's lap tray. She stared at the divorce petition spread before her, the words swimming slightly under the painkiller's fog. Irreconcilable differences, it read, but that felt too sterile, too mild for the chasm Michael had carved. Abandonment, emotional and physical, that was the core, backed by the 911 recording the lawyer had unearthed. Amara could almost hear it again. The bystander's frantic voice describing Michael saving his wife from the front seat, and his silent nod sealing the lie. In court, her attorney explained, it painted a picture of willful neglect, especially since he left her unconscious to escort Jessica home first. Under state law, such actions could sway asset division, proving he'd forsaken his vows in crisis. Amara signed the form with a steady hand, though inside turmoil churned. The pen's scratch echoed her resolve, but doubts whispered, had she missed the signs earlier? A flashback pulled her back, to their wedding day, sunlight filtering through stained glass as Michael slipped the ring on her finger, his voice trembling with sincerity. I promise to stand by you, always, he'd said, eyes locked on hers. They'd met in college econ class, bonding over late-night study sessions that turned into dreams of building a life together. He'd supported her consulting ambitions, even when his construction career demanded long hours. But cracks had formed, the promotion that kept him at the office, Jessica's sudden integration into their social circle after her divorce. Amara had dismissed Jessica's lingering hugs as friendliness, Michael's evasions as stress. Now, hindsight sharpened those memories into warnings she'd ignored. The lawyer, Ms. Harper, visited that afternoon, her briefcase snapping open like a judge's gavel. We've got solid grounds, she said, sliding over the 911 transcript and rescue report. The paramedic's notes confirm he prioritized the passenger, Jessica, without correcting the assumption she was his spouse. Paired with hospital logs showing his delayed return, it's abandonment. We'll push for immediate separation and audit your joint finances. Any red flags there? Amara hesitated, the nagging thought from the hospital resurfacing. There were Odd transfers last year. He said they were for work, but they went to an account I didn't recognize. Ms. Harper's eyes narrowed, promising to subpoena records. As she left, Amara felt a mix of empowerment and sorrow. Filing wasn't just ending a marriage, it was dissecting the life she'd built. Discharge came soon after, the hospital wheelchair rolling her into sunlight that felt mocking in its brightness. Home was out of the question. She'd arranged a short-term rental, a cozy apartment overlooking a park, paid from her savings. Physical therapy started the next day at a nearby clinic, the sterile gym smelling of rubber mats and sweat. Amara hobbled in on crutches, her leg cast a heavy anchor, each step igniting fire along her nerves. Her therapist, David, greeted her with a warm smile that reached his eyes, hazel flecked with gold under the fluorescent lights. He was mid-30s, broad-shouldered from his own regimen, with a calm demeanor that put her at ease. Amara, right? Let's get you started easily. We'll focus on mobility first, build strength without pushing too hard. As he guided her through gentle exercises, his hands steady on her arm, Amara sensed a quiet depth in him. He didn't pry, but when she winced during a leg lift, he paused. Breathe through it. Pain's part of healing, but it doesn't define you. His voice carried a subtle weight, like someone who'd known fracture beyond the physical. Over sessions, snippets emerged. David shared he'd been through a divorce 2 years back. His ex had cheated with a colleague, leaving him questioning trust. It wrecked me, he admitted one day, spotting her on the parallel bars. Felt like my foundation crumbled, but therapy, physical and emotional, taught me to rebuild. You find strength in the cracks. Amara nodded, sweat beading on her forehead as she balanced. His story mirrored hers too closely, stirring a reluctant connection. Michael's indifference stood in stark contrast. He'd called once post-filing, voice laced with feigned concern, but she hadn't answered. David's patience highlighted what she lacked, a partner who saw her pain without flinching. By week's end, progress showed. She could bear weight longer, the ache dulling to a manageable throb. But emotionally, the audit request unearthed more, a trail of unexplained withdrawals, hinting at Michael's deeper deceptions. Lying in bed that night, Amara clutched her phone, the lawyer's email glowing. Potential fraud. This strengthens your case. The realization hit like a fresh impact. Michael hadn't just strayed. He'd been eroding their foundation for months, perhaps years. Anger surged, hot and clarifying, but beneath it, grief for the man she'd loved lingered. As sleep evaded her, Amara whispered to the empty room, "No more illusions." Tomorrow she'd push harder, in therapy, in court, in reclaiming herself. The apartment's balcony overlooked a quiet park where joggers traced paths under budding cherry blossoms, their rhythmic footfalls a distant hum against Amara's racing thoughts. She sat there most mornings now, a laptop balanced on her lap, the cast on her leg propped on a stool like an unwelcome companion. Therapy had progressed. She could navigate short distances with a cane, the pain a persistent echo rather than a scream. But the real work, the rebuilding, demanded more than muscle memory. Amara scrolled through old files, dust-covered dreams from before marriage swallowed her ambitions, the strategic consulting firm she'd envisioned in college, helping businesses navigate crises, much like she was doing for herself now. Michael had encouraged it once, but as his career soared, hers had stalled, subsumed by supporting the family, by late dinners and empty evenings waiting for him. No more. She typed furiously, outlining a business plan, target markets in construction and real estate, leveraging her econ background and the contacts she'd let lapse. The words flowed, a balm against the insomnia that plagued her nights. Those dark hours were the hardest. Lying in the unfamiliar bed, sheets tangled from restless turns, Amara's mind replayed the betrayal like a looped reel. Michael's nod in the wreckage, Jessica's triumphant perch in the front seat. Grief ambushed her then, hot tears soaking the pillow as she questioned everything. Had she been too trusting, too accommodating? The pain wasn't just loss. It was the erosion of self, the way she'd diminished to fit his world. But dawn always brought clarity, a fierce independence sparking amid the ruins. "You're not defined by him," she'd whisper to her reflection, wiping her face. Each sunrise, she chose action over anguish, channeling the hurt into fuel. David noticed the shift during sessions. The clinic's air hummed with the whir of treadmills and muffled grunts, but his corner felt like a sanctuary. "You're powering through these reps like a pro," he said one afternoon, adjusting the resistance on the leg press. His touch was professional, yet reassuring, his calloused hands speaking of his own battles. Amara paused mid-lift, sweat trickling down her temple. "Feels good to control something, you know. After everything." He nodded, leaning against the machine, his expression softening. "I get it. When my ex left, I threw myself into work, trained harder, took on extra clients. But it wasn't just physical. I had to face the trust issues head on." He hesitated as if weighing the vulnerability, then continued. "She cheated with my best friend. Found out on our anniversary of all days. It gutted me, made me question if I was blind or just naive. Therapy helped, but so did time. And realizing not everyone's out to hurt you." His words hung in the air, laced with a quiet pain that mirrored hers. Amara lowered the weight slowly, her breath steadying. Sharing felt risky, but his honesty cracked open a door she'd kept shut. "Sounds familiar. Michael, he didn't just cheat. He chose her in the accident, prioritized her while I was trapped." Saying it aloud stung, but David's empathetic gaze, free of pity, eased the ache. They talked longer that day, swapping stories over water breaks, his rebuilding through solo hikes, her tentative business plans. A friendship bloomed, rooted in mutual respect, not obligation. For the first time, Amara felt seen, not sidelined. News of Michael and Jessica filtered in through mutual friends' hesitant texts, subtle at first, then blatant. A photo popped up on social media. Them at a gala, arms linked, Jessica's diamond ring glinting under chandeliers. Amara's finger hovered over the screen, a pang twisting her gut. They were public now, parading what had shattered her world. She imagined Michael's thoughts. Did he regret it? In quieter moments, she pictured him pausing mid-laugh, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he glimpsed her strength from afar. But the image faded. His choices were his chains. She closed the app, refocusing on her laptop. A potential client email glowed, a small firm seeking crisis management advice. Her pitch had landed, excitement bubbled, tempered by the night's shadows, but real nonetheless. As evening fell, the park lights twinkled below, a constellation of possibilities. David texted, "Proud of your progress today. Coffee after next session?" Amara smiled, typing back yes. It wasn't romance, not yet, but a foundation, solid and earned. Yet as she set the phone down, a deeper unease stirred. The financial audit from the divorce proceedings had revealed more discrepancies. Transfers to an offshore account, timed suspiciously with Jessica's visits. Michael's deceit ran deeper than affairs. It tainted their shared assets, her future. Anger flared anew, but so did purpose. She wouldn't drown in the past. She'd rise from it, one strategic step at a time. Tomorrow's therapy, the client meeting, they were bricks in her new wall. And if shadows lingered, she'd face them head on, unbreakable. The courtroom air hung heavy with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee, a muted hum of whispers underscoring the judge's gavel as it struck once, twice. Amara sat rigid in her seat, the cane propped against her chair, a silent testament to her lingering frailty. Her leg ached dully under the tailored pantsuit, chosen for its sharp lines, an armor against vulnerability. But she focused on the papers before her, the final decree that would sever the ties binding her to Michael. Ms. Harper leaned close, her perfume a faint citrus note amid the tension. "This is it," she murmured. "The evidence sealed it. Abandonment proven, assets divided favorably." Amara nodded, her pulse quickening as the judge recited the terms. The 911 call had been pivotal. Played in chambers, its grainy audio capturing the bystander's assumption and Michael's tacit agreement, framing his choices as deliberate neglect. Under the law, it wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was a breach of marital duty, tipping the scales. Then came the financial revelations, the audit uncovering Michael's siphoned funds, disguised as expenses, but traced to lavish gifts for Jessica, offshore accounts hinting at premeditated deceit. Amara's breath caught, recalling the discovery, poring over statements in her apartment, the numbers blurring through angry tears. He'd been eroding their life long before the crash, funneling money that could have seeded her dreams into his affair. The court awarded her the house, a substantial settlement, and half the liquidated investments. Enough capital to launch her firm without scraping by. Decree granted, the judge intoned, his voice echoing like a door slamming shut. Relief washed over Amara, cool and cleansing, but laced with a bittersweet sting. This wasn't victory, it was survival. As she signed the final papers, her hand trembled slightly, memories flashing unbidden. Michael's proposal on a rainy evening, kneeling in their first apartment, his eyes alight with promise. Had that love been real, or just a prelude to this unraveling? The thought twisted her gut, but she pushed it down. No more dwelling. The ink dried, and with it, her old self. Outside, the spring air carried hints of blooming lilacs, a stark contrast to the sterile hall. Amara leaned on her cane, the click against pavement a rhythmic affirmation. Her phone buzzed. David checking in. How'd it go? Coffee to celebrate? She'd shared the court date during their last session, his quiet support a steady anchor amid the chaos. Their friendship had deepened. Walks in the park after therapy, where he'd open up about his ex's betrayal, his voice raw with healed scars. It taught me to value honesty, he'd said once, his hand brushing hers accidentally, sending a spark she hadn't expected. Amara felt a flutter now, replying yes. It was platonic, she told herself, but the warmth lingered. Back at the apartment, she unpacked boxes from the house. Michael had vacated weeks ago, his absence a ghost in the echoes. Her business was taking shape. A sleek website live, first clients secured through old networks. The settlement infused it with possibility. She envisioned an office downtown, her name on the door. But as evening fell, shadows lengthened and doubt crept in. Was she truly ready to move on? Nights still brought waves of sorrow, the bed too vast, her mind replaying what-ifs. She'd curl into herself then, fighting the pull of despair, emerging stronger with each dawn. A notification pierced the quiet. Social media alerts from friends, hesitant tags. Amara opened it, her heart sinking. Photos flooded her feed. Michael and Jessica at a lavish venue, white gown and tuxedo, smiles plastered under crystal chandeliers. Their wedding, mere weeks after the divorce. Jessica's caption, "Forever starts now." The images hit like salt on wounds. Jessica in a dress Amara recognized from bridal magazines they'd once flipped through together. Michael's arm possessive around her waist. Provocation or indifference? Amara's chest constricted, breath shallow as rage and hurt collided. She zoomed in on his face. Did she detect a hollow in his eyes, a remnant of regret for the woman he'd once cherished? Or was it wishful thinking? Tears pricked, hot and furious. She paced the room, cane thumping, the floral scent from an open window mocking the joy in those pictures. How dare they flaunt it, turning her pain into their spectacle. Grief surged, not just for the marriage, but for the trust she'd squandered. She sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands, the first full release since the hospital. Minutes stretched, the catharsis exhausting but purifying. Wiping her face, she stared at the screen again, then closed the app with deliberate calm. No more spectating their farce. Her laptop beckoned from the table, the business plan open. She dove in, fingers flying over keys, channeling the storm into strategy, projections, pitches, a vision unchained. As midnight approached, a quiet resolve settled. They'd taken her past. She wouldn't gift them her future. Tomorrow, coffee with David, perhaps the start of something genuine. For now in the silence, Amara whispered to herself, "You're free." The word tasted like promise, sharp and unyielding. The summer heat pressed against the windows of Amara's new office. A modest space downtown, walls lined with whiteboards scribbled in her precise handwriting. She leaned back in her chair, the leather creaking softly as she reviewed a client's proposal. Her firm was gaining traction. 3 contracts in the bag. Consultations booked solid for the month. The cane rested against her desk now, a relic she rarely needed, her leg's strength returning like her resolve. Mornings with David had become routine, coffee turning into lunches, his laughter a gentle counterpoint to the solitude she'd once feared. He'd shared more of his past last week, over sandwiches in the park, the betrayal that left him guarded, but open to her in ways that felt earned, not rushed. "You're inspiring me to take risks again," he'd said, his hand lingering on hers. Amara felt a warmth bloom, tentative but real amid the debris of her old life. Yet echoes of that life intruded. Her phone buzzed with alerts from industry news feeds, construction sector updates she'd subscribed to during her marriage, never bothering to cancel. The headline caught her eye. "Major bid scandal rocks local firm. Insider trading alleged." Amara clicked through, her coffee growing cold as she read. Jessica's family company, prominent in building contracts, was under fire. Whispers of rigged tenders, tax evasion, details spilling like cracks in a dam. She scrolled further, piecing it together from articles and LinkedIn chatter. Michael, now Jessica's husband, had been caught in an affair. Another one, photos leaked of him with a colleague at a hotel bar. Jessica's fury had unleashed her father's wrath. Contracts Michael relied on vaporized overnight, his freelance consulting gig crumbling. Amara's breath hitched, a mix of schadenfreude and sorrow twisting inside her. She imagined Michael's face, that charming smile faltering as doors slammed. Did he regret it now, the choices that led here? In quieter moments, she pictured him alone in his new apartment, staring at wedding photos with hollow eyes, remembering how he'd once woken her with breakfast in bed, whispering apologies for late nights. But those memories soured. The audit had revealed his fraud predated Jessica, small siphons from joint accounts funding business trips that were likely trysts. He'd been dishonest long before the crash, eroding their foundation while she built illusions of stability. Social media amplified the drama. Friends forwarded posts, Jessica's cryptic rants about betrayal from within, her profile photo swapped to a solo shot, ring conspicuously absent. Then came Michael's counterpunch, a whistleblower article, anonymous but reeking of his style, exposing the family's deeper schemes. Evidence of bid rigging, bribes to officials, all documented in leaked emails. Amara stared at the screen, her office fan whirring softly, stirring papers on her desk. How had he gathered that? During their courtship phase, perhaps, when he'd cozied up to Jessica's circle for networking. The irony burned. His deceit, once aimed at her, now boomeranged on them both. The scandal escalated rapidly. Evening news segments played on her laptop as she cooked dinner, pasta simmering with garlic's sharp aroma filling the kitchen. Reporters outside the family offices, Jessica's father stone-faced, denying allegations. Michael's name surfaced next, implicated as a co-conspirator, his evidence backfiring when investigators traced it to him, revealing his own complicity in minor deals. Lawsuits flew, defamation from Jessica, fraud charges from authorities. Amara watched a clip of Michael leaving a precinct, head down, the flash of cameras illuminating his drawn features. He looked smaller, diminished, the charisma that once drew her in, now a faded mask. A pang hit her, not pity exactly, but a complex grief for the man he'd been, or pretended to be. Nights like this, she'd pace the apartment, the wooden floors cool under her feet, wrestling with the emotions. Why did it still hurt? The betrayal was old, but seeing its consequences unfold felt like picking at a scar, raw and insistent. David called as she settled on the couch, his voice a soothing anchor. "Saw the news. Your ex in the thick of it. You okay?" Amara hesitated, the TV muted but images lingering. "It's surreal. Like watching a train wreck, I escaped." They talked late, his empathy wrapping around her like a blanket. He shared a similar story from his divorce, the ex's affair imploding publicly, leaving him vindicated but hollow. "It passes," he assured, "and you're thriving despite it." Thriving, yes. But as she hung up, another alert pinged. A tabloid piece with Jessica's interview, tears glistening as she accused Michael of manipulation from day one. He used me to get to my family, she claimed, her voice breaking. Amara's mind flashed to Jessica's motives, her post-divorce desperation, latching on to Michael for stability, perhaps financial gain. The motion sickness ploy in the car now seemed calculated, a step in a longer game. Both predators devour each other. The destruction was mutual, headlines screaming of impending bankruptcy for the family firm. Michael's assets frozen amid probes. Amara closed her eyes, the city's distant hum filtering through the window. Part of her relished the justice, karma without her lifting a finger. But deeper, a quiet horror stirred. How close she'd come to being collateral in their web. As sleep beckoned, a realization crystallized, sharp as the scandal's edge. Their downfall wasn't her triumph yet, but it cleared the path. Tomorrow she'd chase a lead tied to the chaos, a project left dangling. For now in the darkness, she breathed easier, the trap they'd set snapping shut on them alone. The email arrived like a bolt from a clear sky, nestled among routine client inquiries in Amara's inbox. She sat at her desk, the morning light slanting through blinds, casting striped shadows on the stack of proposals. The subject line, urgent, partnership opportunity on Riverside Development, made her pause, coffee mug halfway to her lips. The aroma of fresh brew mingled with the faint ink scent from printed contracts, grounding her as she clicked open. The message was from a consortium of investors, names she recognized from industry whispers. Backers of a massive urban renewal project, the kind that reshaped skylines. Jessica's family firm had secured the bid months ago, amid rumors of under-the-table deals. Connections Michael had once bragged about leveraging. Now with the scandal's fallout, the company teetered on bankruptcy. Assets seized, executives indicted. The project stalled like a half-built skeleton against the riverbank. "We're seeking a clean slate consultant," the email read. "Your firm's reputation for integrity and strategic acumen stands out. Proposal due by week's end." Amara's heart quickened, a thrill cutting through the routine hum of her office fan. This wasn't just any contract. It was the jewel, the one that could catapult her fledgling business into the spotlight. She leaned back, fingers drumming the desk, her mind racing through logistics. Timelines, team hires, the pitch she'd craft with razor precision. But beneath the excitement lurked a complex undercurrent, like the river's hidden eddies. This opportunity bloomed from their ruin, Michael and Jessica's greed-fueled implosion, leaving a vacuum only she could fill. Irony twisted in her gut. The very project tainted by their schemes, now hers for the taking, her clean record a beacon amid the debris. She stood pacing to the window, the city sprawl below a tapestry of steel and glass. News alerts had painted the collapse in vivid strokes. Jessica's family offices raided at dawn, files carted out in boxes under flashing cameras. Jessica herself, pale and defiant in press photos, filing for divorce amid the chaos. Her accusations against Michael echoing his against her father. Amara had glimpsed a video clip last night. Jessica outside the court, wind tousling her hair, voice cracking as she denied involvement. "It was all him," she'd spat, eyes red-rimmed. Michael, meanwhile, faced his own arraignment, his once confident stride reduced to a shuffle and handcuffs. Amara felt a pang then, watching from her couch, the remote cool in her hand. Not satisfaction exactly, though a part of her relished the poetic justice, but a quiet pity. He'd been her husband after all, the man who'd held her through job losses and family griefs. What desperation had driven him to this? Jessica, too, her friendship, a facade for ambition, now crumbling like the empire she'd inherited. The emotions warred within her, glee at the windfall, shadowed by sorrow for the human wreckage. Nights lately brought restless dreams, fragments of the crash, Michael's face in the rearview mirror, regret flickering before he turned away. She'd wake sweat-dampened, reaching for her phone to text David. His responses a steadying force. "It's okay to feel mixed. Doesn't make you weak." Their connection had deepened. A dinner last week, candlelight softening his features as he confessed his growing feelings. "You're not just a patient anymore," he'd said, his hand covering hers. Amara had leaned in, the kiss tentative but electric, a spark amid her rebuilding. She shook off the reverie, returning to her desk. The proposal demanded focus, market analysis, risk assessments, and her unique angle on ethical redevelopment. As she typed, the irony deepened. Michael's old contacts, once doors he shut on her ambitions, now swung open through his downfall. The bid he'd helped rig, hers to redeem, transforming scandal into sustainability. By afternoon, she'd outlined a killer pitch, incorporating data from public records on the project's flaws. Bribes exposed, timelines botched. Her firm would fix it, reputation intact. David met her for lunch at a cafe overlooking the park, the air alive with birdsong and distant laughter. He slid into the booth, his smile easing the knot in her chest. "Big news?" he asked, reading her expression. She recounted the email, the words tumbling out amid bites of salad, the crisp greens crunching under her fork. "It's built on their mess, the project they stole through back channels. Now it's mine." Her voice held triumph, but her eyes betrayed the conflict. David nodded, stirring his soup thoughtfully. "Karma's gift, huh? But I see it bothers you. The pity." Amara sighed, the steam from her tea curling like unresolved thoughts. "They destroyed themselves, but part of me wonders, what if I'd fought sooner? Or if Michael had chosen differently?" The admission hung heavy, vulnerability raw in the daylight. He reached across, his touch warm. "You didn't cause this. Their choices did. And look at you, turning ashes into something solid." His words anchored her, much like his presence during therapy walks, when he'd shared his own post-divorce doubts. Back at the office, she refined the proposal late into the evening, the screen's glow illuminating her determined face. The investors called the next day, impressed, contract hers. Elation surged, pure and untainted, as she hung up. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Yet as she gazed at the city lights twinkling like fallen stars, a final realization settled. Their toxicity had forged her path, unintended but inevitable. She didn't need to orchestrate downfall. Fate had, leaving her to rise unencumbered. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot like whispered secrets, the park a canvas of gold and crimson as Amara strolled hand in hand with David. A year had slipped by since the Riverside project's ink dried, transforming her firm from a fledgling venture into a powerhouse. Offices expanded, a team of 20 buzzing with energy, accolades lining the walls from industry awards. The air carried the crisp scent of earth and distant rain, a gentle breeze tousling her hair as she laughed at David's joke about his latest therapy, client's stubborn refusal to stretch. His grip was warm, steady, a constant she'd come to cherish in the quiet rebuild of her life. Their relationship had unfolded like the seasons. Tentative spring walks evolving into summer adventures. Hikes where he'd share stories of his ex's betrayal, his voice steady but eyes distant, mirroring her own scars from Michael. "We both know the ache of starting over," he'd said one evening by a campfire, flames dancing in reflection. Amara had nodded, opening up about the crash's lingering nightmares, the way betrayal echoed in empty rooms. Those vulnerabilities bound them, forging a partnership rooted in trust, not illusion. Now they dreamed aloud, a shared home, perhaps traveled to places she'd once pinned on a board during her marriage. David supported her ambitions without eclipsing them, celebrating each client win with quiet pride. In bed at night, his arms around her, chased away the shadows, his heartbeat a rhythm of safety she'd forgotten existed. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose as they meandered toward a bench overlooking the pond. Ducks glided on the water's surface, ripples spreading like forgotten worries dissolving. Amara felt a profound contentment settle in her chest, the kind earned through sweat and tears, not handed freely. Her leg bore no trace of the fracture now, save a faint scar she traced absently during stressful calls. The firm thrived on ethical consulting, her reputation a shield against the industry's underbelly. Clients sought her out for the very integrity Michael and Jessica had scorned, turning the scandal's ashes into fertile ground. She'd hired specialists, mentored young women navigating male-dominated fields, channeling her past pain into purpose. Success tasted sweeter for the struggle, Each boardroom victory a quiet affirmation. She was unbreakable. David squeezed her hand, pulling her from reverie. "Penny for your thoughts?" She smiled, leaning into him, the wool of his sweater soft against her cheek. "Just grateful. For this. For us." His kiss on her forehead lingered, warm as the fading light. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a soft buzz against the park's serenity. She fished it out, glancing at the screen absent-mindedly. A news alert flashed. Michael Ellis officially sentenced to prison for complicity and fraud. Jessica Ellis files for divorce, facing her own trial on related charges. The words hung there, stark against the notification's white backdrop. Amara's breath caught, a fleeting wave of old pain crashing over her, the screech of tires, the backseat isolation, Michael's nod that had unraveled everything. Memories flickered, his genuine laughter on their honeymoon, now tainted by the deceit she'd uncovered, the funds he'd siphoned to fuel his lies. Jessica's face in those wedding photos, triumphant then, now likely etched with regret in courtrooms. The scandal had consumed them fully. Michael's appeals failing, his charm useless against evidence he'd unwittingly provided. Jessica's empire in ruins, her divorce a mirror of Amara's own, but laced with criminal shadows. A year of headlines had chronicled their downfall. Indictments, assets liquidated, reputations shredded like the leaves underfoot. The pang was brief, a ripple on the pond's surface, not the storm it once would have been. No anger surged, no bitter satisfaction, just a distant echo of sorrow for lives wasted on greed. She'd followed the trial sporadically at first, curiosity pulling her to articles during sleepless nights, but gradually let go, the updates fading into background noise. Their fate was sealed by choices she'd escaped, a chapter closed long ago. Amara exhaled slowly, the air cool in her lungs, and swiped the notification away. The screen darkened, reflecting her face, calm, unburdened. She slipped the phone back into her pocket and turned to David, his concerned eyes searching hers. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said, her voice steady, a genuine smile curving her lips. She took his hand again, lacing their fingers with deliberate warmth. The path ahead wound through the trees, inviting, endless. Birds called overhead, their songs a melody of renewal, as the sun slipped below the horizon, bathing the world in twilight's gentle glow. In that moment, the past dissolved like mist in the evening air. Amara walked on, hand in hand with the man who saw her wholly toward a future she'd forged herself. Radiant, peaceful, utterly deserved. As the seasons turned, Amara's life blossomed into a tapestry of triumph and tranquility. Her firm stood as a beacon of integrity, mentoring others through the storm she'd weathered. With David by her side, their love was a quiet fortress built on shared scars and unwavering trust. She embraced each dawn with unyielding grace. The echoes of betrayal faded like distant thunder, replaced by the symphony of her own heartbeat. Strong, resilient, free. In the end, Amara didn't just survive. She soared, a testament to the power of rising from ruins, claiming the peace she had so fiercely earned.